Hey, lambs, I have been so sick literally all week. I don't know if you could hear the stuffiness because I still can't really breathe, but because I was not able to even get up and function like a human being, I wasn't able to do your episode. So this episode that came out today or that you're about to listen to is a past bonus episode. And then the Lamb fam got a Kyrans. So sorry that I'm putting out a past bonus. Sorry you're not able to get the episode that I originally wanted to go out. But moving forward, as I get better, everything will go back to normal. But I did want to put out an episode so that you did not miss your weekly dose of love and murder.
Now part of the Darkcast network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side.
Hey lambs, I am here for your January bonus episode. I apologize it's so late. I really want to get your bonus episodes out, your monthly bonus episodes out in the beginning of the month. However, I'm trying to get there. As long as I get it out before the end of the month, but I'm really trying to get to a point where I'm getting it out at the beginning of the month. So in this bonus episode, in this January bonus episode, I am telling you the case of Dominique Ellen Dunne. She was an actress who was actually murdered by her boyfriend. Dominique was the youngest of three and was born on November 3rd, 1959. She was a talented American actress from Santa Monica, California. Her parents had lost two daughters in their infancy before Dominique was born, and they died from a lung disease called hyaline membrane disease. So by the time she was born, she was the only daughter who survived, and so the parents spoiled her rotten. She did have two older brothers, Alexander Dunne and Griffin Dunne. Her father was also a famous writer-producer named Dominique Dunne. Griffin went on to have a very successful acting career, becoming a film producer and a film director. His first big role was in playing Jack Goodman in the 1981 movie An American Werewolf in London. Her uncle, her father's brother, John Gregory Dunne, and his wife, Joan Didion, were famous writers at the time. And the family had very well-known friends of the family, Maria Cooper Janis, who was the daughter of actors Gary Cooper and Veronica Rocky Cooper, and producer Martin Manulis. So basically, she grew up in the actor life and the Hollywood life, and she knew the industry. Then, on the flip side, her mother, Ellen Beatrice Griffin Dunne, was a rich heiress. So she literally grew up in money. However, in 1967, when Dominique was just 8, her parents divorced. It was a civil divorce. They stayed as friends, and it wasn't anything like crazy. Dominique was known to be incredibly kind-hearted, and she took in a lot of stray animals. She was always rescuing animals. She had a cat who had a lobotomy, and she had a dog with stunted legs. So with the background that she had, she basically pursued acting and became another Hollywood professional within her family. She went to Harvard Westlake School in Los Angeles, then to Taft School in Watertown, Connecticut, and finally she went to Fountain Valley School in Fountain, Colorado. After she finished school, she spent a year in Florence, Italy, and learned Italian. She even took 2 trips to Italy with her father. While all of this was happening, her mother was battling multiple sclerosis, which was getting worse and worse by the day. She ended up having to move out of the family home and into a facility to help with the multiple sclerosis. When Dominique began acting, she started acting on stage productions, so she appeared in West Side Story and The Mousetrap, stuff like that. Then she made her TV debut in a movie called Diary of a Teenage Hitchhiker. And then she went on to play recurring roles in shows like Family, where she played Erica. And this was in 1980. And then she played Paulina Bornstein in a comedy, Breaking Away, from 1980 to 1981. Then she had various supporting roles in Lou Grant, Heart to Heart, and Fame. So basically, right now, at this moment, she was getting more roles, whether it was supporting or leading or whatever. She was getting more roles than any actresses were getting in Hollywood at that time. Then she got her big break in 1982, where she starred as Dana Freeling in Poltergeist. Then she appeared again in the sequel, Poltergeist 2: The Other Side. After that, she played a leading role in the Western film The Shadow Riders in 1982, and then took on the role of Amy Kent in Chips that same year. She also became part of the popular 80s series V in 1983. And by this time, she's only 23 years old. Now, to be honest, I never watched any of those movies. I did watch V, but I watched, the 2000 version of it? I don't remember when that came out, but the most recent version of it. So I know she wasn't in there, but I haven't watched any of these movies, so I didn't know anything about her. In 1981, Dominique met a man named John Thomas Sweeney, who worked as a sous chef at a restaurant, Ma Maison. They started dating, and after only a couple of weeks of dating, they decided to start living together in a one-bedroom house and on Rangley Avenue in West Hollywood. Now, because Dominique didn't take time to know about him, what she didn't know is that he was the eldest son in a very abusive family. He was raised in the poor Pennsylvania coal town of Hazeltown, and he usually saw his alcoholic father beating up on his mother. His earliest memories of his parents include his father strangling his mother, and when he tried to save his mother, his father beat him up. And the reason he became a chef is because he was good at cooking, and he also saw that being a chef was a way out of all of this stuff. But because Dominique had not done her due diligence and taken her time and learned about him, learned about his background, she didn't know any of this. And, she's just riding the high of being in love and infatuation and all of that. And she went to go introduce him to her family. Out of everybody in her family, only Alex didn't like John. After meeting John, when her father, Dominic, got back to the hotel room, he called her mother and told her, quote, he is much more in love with her than she is with him. And they both agreed that John wasn't good for their daughter. However, I guess some people wouldn't tell their daughter that, or tell their children that. They'll just be like, well, they'll find out on their own. I'm not most people. I'm literally telling my child that. If I don't like this person, I'm telling her why. And whatever happens, happens. But I'm not going to be like, well, she'll find out. Nope, absolutely not. And I'm not condemning people who do that. That's your choice. And my choice is I'm telling my child. So the next morning, Alex told his father this. A guy at the bar recognized Dominique as the older sister from Poltergeist and shouted out one of the lines from her movie. What's happening? Apparently that's a line in the movie. But this scene was aired so frequently on TV, I guess like a clip, that people all over the country knew it. So there was basically no flirting, no acting crazy, just a fan saying, what's happening? You know what I'm saying? This like saying your catchphrase or whatever. So when John came back to the table, which he had been using the restroom at that time, and he saw that, he got so angry. He went over to the man and just picked him up by his collar and started shaking him. So to Alex, it was like, what is your issue? There was nothing to be getting angry about. So this is what Alex told Dominic, the father. So when Dominic went to meet Dominique and John for a lunch date, he decided that he was going to speak to John about this. So he got to the lunch date and waited and waited and waited. When they finally arrived, he noticed that his daughter had been crying, even though that, she tried to cover it up. And even though John was trying to act like everything was okay, talking with the chef at the restaurant and everything like that, they had a conversation in French, yada, yada, yada. John seemed like uneasy and nervous, and he didn't really want to talk. So Dominic just figured maybe they had an argument. Maybe this wasn't a good time to bring up anything. So he figured that he wouldn't talk to her right now about this. And he figured she was an adult and she could figure it out. 3 days later, they met again at the River Cafe under the Brooklyn Bridge. They sat by the window to watch fireworks, and this time went really well. They had a good time. John told Dominic that he was actually thinking about quitting his job at Ma Maison, and he said he had French and Japanese investors who wanted to finance a restaurant for him. So he said he picked a spot in Melrose Place in Los Angeles, which is a popular spot for rich people. So, he figured that's a great place to open up. He can do an ROI really quickly, and this is going to succeed. So Dominic said, okay, cool, sounds like a plan. And, that's how that meeting with her father for the third time ended. Later on in the relationship, Dominique's and John's relationship just got really volatile. He was more jealous, more possessive. Instead of just arguing, their fights turned physical. And they would fight in front of friends, family. It didn't matter. And Dominique would go and complain to her mother about his temper, how he broke furniture, how he smashed the dishes. But she always told her mother that he would never hurt her. I'm pretty sure her mother was saying, you kind of need to get out of there. I'm kind of worried about you. But she was like, he's not going to hurt me. I know he's not going to hurt me. But this is something that people who are in abusive situations often tell themselves. But you have to understand he's already hurting you. It's physical. He's punching you and everything. Like, he's already hurting you. But anyways, on October 27th, 1982, John was having another jealous fit of rage, and he grabbed Dominique by her hair and yanked out handfuls of her hair by the roots. Oh my God. So Dominique ran out of the house and ran to her mom's house. John followed her and just started banging on the door and screaming obscenities and yelled at her to let him in. And her mother wouldn't let him in, as I wouldn't either. Actually, I'd have called 911. Never mind. I'll just stop there. So she told him that you need to calm down. I'm not letting you in. And if you don't stop, I'm going to call the police on you. So instead of leaving him and never going back, a few days later, she went back to her house with John and they made up. And they were a, quote, happy couple for some time. So this is literally the cycle of abuse. However, not even a month passed when on September 26th, they were back to fighting again. This time, John held her by her throat and then threw her down on the floor and proceeded to strangle the life out of her. However, at this time, Dominique had a friend staying over. The friend, Brian Cook, had heard strange, loud gagging noises and decided to go out and see what was going on. And that's when he saw John strangling the mess out of Dominique. So Brian stopped this. Like, what in the world is wrong with you, dude? Are you serious? I will end you if you don't let her go. And John let her go, and he was like, look, it's just a misunderstanding. I was just mad at Dominique. It's not a big deal. Dominique, come back to bed. And Dominique told Brian everything's all right. Again, cycle of abuse. She told Brian, everything's all right. I'm going to be fine. It's all fine. I'm going to go back to bed now. You go back to bed. Don't worry about it. So everybody, well, I don't want to say everybody went back, but Brian reluctantly went back to his room where he had his girlfriend there too. And Dominique said she's going to come to bed. So John went back to his room and then she went to the bathroom and snuck out the bathroom window. When John heard her car start, he ran out and jumped on the hood and started banging on the car. But she was able to drive off and he was still holding onto the hood. And when she got out of the driveway, I guess he fell over then. After this incident, she stayed at her mom's house for a bit and then went between friends' house for like the next several days. Once she got stronger, she called him on the phone and broke up with him for good. Then when he moved out, she changed all of her locks and moved back into her Rangeley Avenue home. On October 30th, 1982, nearly 5 weeks since they broke up, Dominique was at her West Hollywood home rehearsing lines with David Packer for the upcoming V series. During the rehearsal, she got a call, and it was one of her friends, so she's sitting there talking to her friend, and in the middle of that conversation, the operator cut in. So I guess back in the day, really? The operator would cut in to tell you that someone else was on the line? Really? Is that what happened? Anybody who... Look, I'm not judging. I'm just surprised. I didn't know that's how it worked. I thought you would just get a busy signal if you were trying to call somebody who was already on the phone, like back in the day. I thought you would just get a busy signal. That's what I know. But this is saying an operator cut in to tell her that someone else was trying to call her. So if you're familiar with this from back then, please let me know if that's how it worked. So then why didn't they keep that up? When I was growing up, if you tried to call somebody who was already on the phone, you got a busy signal. But if you had the opportunity, maybe it was something extra you had to pay for. Anyways, I was just thinking, I was like, if you had the opportunity for an operator to cut in to tell you somebody else is trying to call you, isn't that a service they should have kept up for a while until call waiting started? Anyways, I'm just thinking out loud. So anyway, the friend heard her say, "Oh my God, it's Sweeney. Let me get him off the phone." So she clicked over or whatever, however that worked back then, and, told him she didn't want to talk to him. And then she finished her conversation with her friend and hung up. She went back to rehearsing, and then 10 minutes later, somebody rang the doorbell. She went to the door, and it was John. However, Dominique didn't open the door because she was afraid of him, and he convinced her to talk to him outside on the porch. So she went outside, and her acting partner, David, could hear them yelling outside loudly. But he continued to mind his business because he knew about their relationship. But then he heard 2 loud smacks, 2 short screams, and a loud thud as someone hit the ground. Now, because he knew how violent John was, he didn't run to go check. Instead, he just called 911. However, I guess in the 80s, you had a nationwide 911 system. So he was told that the system that he got was the house where he's at now was out of the jurisdiction. So then they gave him the direct number to the officers in this jurisdiction, which, I mean, time is wasting. Are you kidding me right now? So he called that number and didn't get a hold of anyone. Are you serious? So because he was afraid for his life and the life of his coworker, he called a friend and said if anything happened to him, John Sweeney was behind it. He told his friend everything that was going on, and he said, "I'm telling you this just in case anything happened to me." Then he snuck out the back door and tiptoed to the driveway and peeked around the corner, and that's when he saw John kneeling over a very limp Dominique near some bushes. He didn't go out there and try and be brave and do anything, which I'm not judging him because you don't know how crazy this person is. It's not like you don't know if he has a gun. He could have gone out there and been like, "Hey, leave her alone." And then he's gone. So he was just witnessing. However, while he was trying to leave, John saw him and didn't go after him. Instead, he told him to just call the police. When police arrived, which I guess David was able to get them this time. When police arrived, John was very submissive. He had his hands in the air, and he told them, quote, "I killed my girlfriend and I tried to kill myself. Man, I blew it. I killed her. I didn't think I choked her that hard, but I don't know. I just kept choking her. I just lost my temper and I blew it again." At which point did you try and kill yourself? I don't know. Maybe it was before David came around the corner and watched you just sitting there looking at her. Dominique was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles and immediately put on life support, but she went into a coma. According to what John told the police, he had a heated argument with Dominique, but then he lost control and blacked out. He said he didn't remember anything. Just later, when it was too late, he found himself on top of her with his hands around her throat. Sir, I don't buy that. I'm so angry that I just, don't remember anything that happened. Bullshit. If you know you have such a temper, which I'm pretty sure by now you know this, you should have gotten anger management classes. And instead of chasing after a woman who didn't want you, you should have been working on yourself. So I'm not buying that. At 5 a.m. on October 31st, police called Dominique's parents. They told him that Dominique had been found almost dead and she was at the hospital. So both parents jumped on the first plane they were able to get and went to Los Angeles. They also got a hold of Griffin. Griffin made his way to Los Angeles too. However, nobody was able to get Alex because he chose to live without a phone. And don't forget, right now the mother is dealing with multiple sclerosis, so she's actually in a wheelchair. The mother's love, that's not stopping her. Anyway, so they all get to Los Angeles and they meet with the doctors and everything. And the doctors are telling them that there's possible irreversible brain damage. By now, news reports, news van reporters, everybody was outside the hospital waiting for a chance to get their own scoop. Because, news, instead of caring about a human life, let's just flock this area waiting to hear something. And let's just gossip about what happened. So, and I know y'all are going to say, well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle? No. Because I wouldn't be right outside the hospital like, "Oh, can you tell me what happened?" Or I'm going to give them their privacy and I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to report what happened. And the report is only to help get people's story out and also to help others going through this situation understand what happens because of the situation and remind you to get out. So no, it's really not the same as me being a vulture trying to get every single picture and quote from somebody who's literally on their deathbed as I can, or from their parents who's going through this hardship. I guess I wouldn't make it in a news world because I would literally be waiting till everything dies down and then call the family and offer my condolences and say, do you feel like talking, and give my reason why I'm looking for this interview. Not for money and not for shock value or whatever other people do it for, but to get her story out because her story needs to be told. And also maybe her story could help somebody else that's in this situation so it could help another life. But either way, the vultures were there coming up with headlines. Dominique Ellen Dunne strangled by her ex-boyfriend in coma, all this other stuff. So when her parents walked into her hospital room, they saw that she was tangled in tubes and wires. She was on an artificial respiratory. Her eyes were wide open and it looked like they were bulging out of her head, which I could understand because he strangled her, so that pressure would look like that with the eyes. And the eyes were just wide open, staring at nothing. Her hair was shaved off so that they could install a bolt in her skull to reduce pressure on her brain. And there were large purple finger marks on her neck. And although the nurse had told them that she wouldn't be able to hear them or speak to them because she was in a coma, her mom said, quote, "Hello, my darling. It's Mom. We're all here. We're all here, Dominique, Dad, Griffin, and Alex. We love you." During the next week, hospital staff really tried to get a response from Dominique, really tried to help her heal. But despite everything that they were doing, brain scans revealed no brain activity because of the long time lack of oxygen. By November 4th, her family decided to take her off of life support. They figured there was nothing else that they could do, and they decided to take her off of life support. They ended up having her funeral on November 6th, and at the location they had the funeral at, it actually clashed with a wedding. When the family saw who the wedding was, they were surprised because it was actually the wedding of a friend of John's, and they wouldn't move the wedding time. So since they didn't move the wedding, the funeral had to be moved up an hour. What? Should I say a piece of shit? I mean, I guess that's not his fault, right? So I can't really judge him for that. I don't know. Me personally, I would just wait. I would just wait. This is just me. I don't know. In terms of the wedding, I would wait. Like, can't we wait an hour and then take the next time slot or something? Like, what's an hour? I'm guessing there was a time slot because they had to move the funeral up an hour. So there was another time slot, just an hour, and you couldn't wait just an hour for your wedding? Now, initially, John was charged with attempted murder, but after they pulled the plug on Dominique, he was now charged with first-degree murder. And, of course, he went out and tried to plead not guilty. Dude, how are you trying to plead not guilty when you literally told the cops what happened and there was a witness? Where in that is not guilty? Or are you saying not guilty by reason of insanity? Because, yeah, that's no. He was also charged with assault to cause bodily harm. So John got this high-paying, hoity-toity lawyer to defend him, and his defense team was strong, like strong. The trial began in August 1983, and prosecutor Barshop made a strong impact by asking the court to wait 4 minutes. Now, the 4 minutes he asked them to sit there and wait was the time that it took John to strangle Dominique. So for them to visualize how long his hands were wrapped around her throat and she was without air. During the trial, the prosecution brought up the altercation on September 26th, and there was evidence because her bruises were on film. John, on his part, tried to deny causing serious harms. I mean, I know you see the bruises and you can match them directly to my fingers, but I mean, it's just strangling. That's not bad, right? He told the court that this was an accident and he had just tried to stop her from leaving him. And then he tried to say, well, look, she came back, so obviously I wasn't that bad, right? Now, my first question as the prosecution would be, is there no other way to stop a person from leaving than to wrap your fingers around their throat? Because usually people maybe like grab an arm, like stop, say stop, I don't know, stand in front of them, stuff like that. I've literally never in all the years of my life stopped somebody from leaving by grabbing their throat. I could be wrong. Has anybody else? But I've literally never tried to stop somebody from leaving, ever. I can't tell you of one time by grabbing anybody by their throat or even coming close to their throat area when trying to stop them from leaving. What kind of a defense was that? So according to John, he said his defense is, I don't know how she died. She just died. I was just trying to stop her and then she just died. He said, stop. In the name of love. And because of his voice, she just keeled over and died. Dude, you literally told the officer that night what happened. And might I remind you, there was a witness. So he was telling them that, they were planning to get back together. They spoke every day. They were planning on getting married, starting a family and everything like that. And that night when he came over to her house, for some reason, out of nowhere, she said, no, I don't want to get back together with you. But everything was going smoothly before then. And then she was just like, no, I changed my mind. He said I love this line from abusers, and this is sarcasm. She admitted to making a mistake by leading him on. So she led him on. How many times from an abuser do you hear that? She led him on. I'm sorry for leading you on. And she said she didn't mean it when they talked about getting back together, which nobody ever said this is what happened. So I don't know what kind of la la land he's pulling this out of, but whatever. So being that he was led, he got angry and didn't realize what he was doing until he came back to his senses and saw that he was holding her throat. She wasn't breathing, so he tried to get her up and make her walk. And yeah, that's the way to save somebody who's not breathing. Come on, get up, just walk it off. That sounds rational to me. But she fell down again by the bushes, so he tried CPR next, which only made her throw up. Which made him throw up as well because he realized what he had done. Next, he ran back into her house and downed 2 bottles of pills because he didn't want to live anymore. Then he went back outside to lay next to the body, hoping to die. His lawyers came up and told the court, do you see? He didn't plan any of this. This wasn't premeditated. It just happened. A crime of passion. And you, fellow court goers, whatever I'm going to call you, have to understand that she led him on. And in a blind rage, he did this. So not guilty by way of insanity. Thank you. I rest my case, Your Honor. Well, when police investigators took the stand, they said, bullshit. And the prosecution said, we concur, Your Honor. Bullshit. Can we say that in court? Is that a ruling? Can we get that as a ruling? Bullshit? No? Oh. First of all, there was a witness. Second of all, Your Honor, there was a witness. And for my third piece of evidence, Your Honor, there was a witness. This dude never came back in the house, never downed anything, never did any of that. And also, may I present the police officer who was there on that night where John told him what happened. And it wasn't this story. Also, the medical examiner took to the stand and showed that she had been strangled for at least 3 minutes or longer. So you're telling me in all that time you didn't calm down and change your mind? You literally waited 3 minutes or longer and sat there strangling her. You're saying you were in a blind rage for that long? Then one of his ex-girlfriends decided that, hey, I want to testify, but she only testified in front of the judge and not in front of the jury because she didn't want to be in the same room as John. She stated that her and John dated between 1977 to 1980, and he had assaulted her on at least 10 occasions, with a couple of them resulting in her being hospitalized. Once he broke her nose, then at another time he perforated her eardrum. And she also suffered from a collapsed lung. What's his excuse for this one? She led him on too? Well, she said we were going to be happy, and we weren't happy all the time, so I kind of lost it. So while she's in the judge's chambers talking to him, it was being televised to the courtroom so they could still see what was happening. So when John is seeing this, he jumped up from his seat, sprinted towards the door of the judge's chambers, trying to get to her. Yeah, let's see that calm demeanor again, like how none of this is your fault. Yeah, show us, John. So anyway, 2 bailiffs and 4 armed guards intervened and restrained him. Then he was handcuffed to his chair, and crying, he apologized to the court for the outburst. Well, this judge is better than me, because the judge acknowledged and accepted his outburst. Me, I would have been like, okay, that's all we needed to see. Everybody's ready to rule? Guilty. I didn't need anything else. Guilty, just guilty. Guilty? Guilty? Raise your hand if you think he's guilty. Okay. His attorney chose this moment to request the testimony not be admitted as it was prejudice against John. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you? And for some reason, Judge Katz granted this request. And apparently the jury wasn't watching this, so it was just John and the lawyers and everybody else, because the jury didn't even find out about this testimony until the trial was over. The judge also deemed that the mother's testimony and Dominique's friend's testimonies were hearsay and held them as inadmissible. Did he pay off this judge or something? I don't understand what's going on here. By August 29th, Judge Katz also instructed jurors to charge Sweeney with manslaughter or second-degree murder on the defense attorney's request. Wow. So, do you work for them or they work for you, Judge Katz? I'm not sure. I really thought you were, for lack of a better term, the boss, and they were underneath you, so they had to ask you for the ruling. But it looks like they told you the ruling, and you said, yes, I'll do that. So John's attorneys placed this request based on the fact that the court lacked evidence to charge Sweeney with first-degree murder. There was a witness. In addition to the witness, he confessed to the police. What more evidence do you need? I mean, I guess you could have the smoking gun, so to say, and a tape with a recording of him actually doing this, and then her waking up from her coma and pointing at him and said he did this. I don't know what other evidence you could possibly need. So right now it looks like the prosecutor's defense is weakening. They did use the fact that Dominique's friends and family had to pack up her thing and close up her house, and that her best friend Melinda Bitton found a letter that Dominique had written to John. And the letter says, "Selfish works both ways. You are just as selfish as I am. We have to be 2 individuals to work together as a couple. I am not permitted to do enough things on my own. Why must you be a part of everything I do? Why do you want to come with me to writing lessons and my acting classes? Why are you jealous of every scene partner I have? Why must I recount word for word everything I spoke to Dr. Black about?" Blah, blah, blah. It's just, her asking a bunch of questions. I'll post a letter so y'all can read it yourself. But this whole thing has made me realize how scared I am of you, and I don't mean just physically. I'm afraid of the next time you're going to have another mood swing. When we are good, we are great, but when we are bad, we are horrendous. The bad outweighs the good. To me, that doesn't sound like she was trying to come back to you, sir. The jury deliberated for 8 days, and on September 21st, 1983, acquitted John Sweeney of second-degree murder. They found him guilty of voluntary manslaughter, which is a lesser charge. Oh, my God. I'm banging my head against the table. And then for the fight that happened on September 26th, he was convicted of misdemeanor assault. What in the world is happening here? Is it because it was the 80s, so they didn't really look at what men did to women as really bad? But I mean, literally, he killed her. Just because it's a man and a woman, I don't know. So after that verdict, when the judge said that the jury was right and that the judicial system had been upheld as per laws, Dominique yelled at the judge, quote, "Not for our family, Judge Katz." And he further accused the judge of withholding testimonies on purpose and hiding John's violent history. Later on, Judge Katz was voted the 4th worst judge in Los Angeles County, and then further talked about as his ruling and the events of the trial became a heavily debated topic on TV. On November 7th, during the sentencing, Judge Katz criticized the jury's verdict of manslaughter. Oh, now he's criticizing them? All it took was everybody to hate the bullshit out of him, I guess. He suddenly saw Dominique's death as the result of cold-blooded murder, quote, "a case pure and simple of murder with malice. It only took the entire nation to hate you for you to see this, but you already did your ruling. So what does it matter what you think now? You already said what he got." John was sentenced to 6 years in prison. 6 years, that's it, for manslaughter, and an additional 6 months for the assault. So 6.5 years. The jury retorted to Judge Katz's criticism as, quote, "a cheap shot," and they said if they had been given all the information about John and given access to the evidence and the testimonies, their verdict would have been different. So I can't blame the jury. I blame the judge. I don't know where the judge got this shit from. A year after Dominique died, her mother, Lenny, founded Justice for Homicide Victims, which is a victims' rights advocacy group. After the trial, John went to a medium security prison in Susanville, California, and he was released on parole in September 1986 after only serving 3 years and 7 months and 27 days of his 6.5-year sentence. Oh my God. When he was released, he found work as a head chef at an upscale restaurant called The Chronicle in Santa Monica. After they found out where he was working, Dominique's brother and her mother stood outside the restaurant where they handed out flyers to patrons saying, quote, "The food you will eat tonight was cooked by the hands that killed Dominique Dunne." Finally, after these protests, night after night after night after night, John moved far away from Los Angeles. Then, sometime in the 90s, a Florida physician contacted Dominique and said he had read an article about Dominique's death and claimed that his daughter had recently gotten engaged to a chef named Thomas Sweeney. Griffin called this woman, spoke to the woman, and told her, "Look, you really want to reconsider doing this. He killed my sister." So John accused the Dunnes of harassment, which Dominique had hired a PI to keep an eye on John. And Dominique was like, "Well, whatever. I accuse you of murder, so you could accuse me of harassment all you want." So he had the PI keep an eye on John all the way until John moved to the Pacific Northwest and changed his name and his whole identity, calling himself John Mora. After that, not that he couldn't still track him, but Dominique decided to stop following him and try and get himself to heal. That's why he stopped tracking him, not that he didn't know where he was or what he was calling himself now. 2 weeks after her death on November 18th, 1982, Dominique was shown in a Hill Street Blues episode where she played a victim of abuse. At that time, she actually had real bruises on her body from John's altercation on September 26th. This was aired only 12 days after her funeral, and it was dedicated to her memory. As for her role in the series V, it was actually given to someone else, but her footage was used as a cameo during the series, and V was also dedicated to her memory. In the Poltergeist sequel, it explained that her character had gone off to college. Now, I can't believe how little jail time he got. I don't know what this judge was thinking. I'm wondering if he's one of those men's men, or was he getting paid for this? Or I don't know. I don't even know. I can't even fathom what this judge was thinking. Just remember, if you are a victim of domestic abuse, please go get help. Please. I also want to hear what y'all think about this case. This was crazy. This was completely insane. This dude literally had all the evidence sitting there, and the judge was like, "Well, there's no evidence." I don't know. I don't even know what to think about the outcome. But anyways, I want to hear from y'all. Let me know what you think about this bonus episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.